Welcome to the Ashraf Garda show.
Sylvester Chauke, welcome to Marketing Wars on the Ashraf Garda show.
Absolutely, Ashraf. It's good to be speaking to you
Thank
again.
you. Now, lots of things we can talk about, but I specifically want to zoom in on whether it's companies, whether it's NGOs or NPOs, all doing incredibly good work to alleviate problems around COVID-19. But I want to focus on them pushing their brand out in doing just that. What is your take on that?
I have to say that on the ground, we are seeing quite how brands and companies are responding, to the pandemic. And of course, as marketing teams, we are now looking not just at communicating to the consumers outside, but we're also ensuring that there's a very strong sense of internal communication. And in the experience we've had in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing that the marketing team has also had to drive a very strong and critical, clear message internally to ensure that there is the right information that's been cascaded to the staff, and that every single person who works in that organization is understanding exactly how they need to manage, the pandemic personally, in the workplace and also externally. So we are seeing that there's an internal focus and of course there's an external focus. And depending on the industries that you are in, obviously we're seeing that some brands have cut back on marketing, or at least the kind of marketing that they would be doing right now in terms of some of the sales, some of the new launches, some of the new product extensions, SKUs. So we are seeing that depending on the industry, there is a varied response, depending on where they sit. So I there's just one number of marketing teams doing very different kinds of marketing.
Okay, so let's talk about the internal first. Let's take your organization, the DNA, right? DNA Brand Architects, right? So
yes,
whatever, to what degree do you internalize your company response around COVID-19 and internalize that to your staff complement, keeping in mind for long periods they haven't physically been at work, right?
Yes, I have to say that the way that we'll manage our internal communication is no different to the way that we would manage a client internal communication process. We've had, in fact, over the lockdown, a lot more internal communication briefs coming into our system because there's been a need to communicate. So there are a number of different levels of communication required. Obviously, at a top level, it's the business managing its communication around its stance, around the internal aspects of the business in terms of where we are sitting as a business, where our revenues are, where the challenges are, where the potential pivots have been, and that word pivot comes up again. And I think the importance of the business and the leadership coming at a CEO level into Exco and into the organization has been something that's been quite vital. We're doing the same. Also, there are clear messaging that needs to kind of go out to our staff at the moment around obviously prevention, and also should you be COVID positive, then what exactly you need to do and how. So a lot of HR and human resources communication focus has also been amplified within the organization. And I think for us personally, ensuring that the organization itself is communicating extensively over the period. So daily check-ins, daily communications, and also weekly check-ins and check-outs to ensure that all the information is absolutely adhered to. And then internally at the office as well, if you walk into the office now, you will see obviously all the requirements in terms of sanitization, in terms of all our screens in the office, are reinforcing the message. All the communication in our internal communication platforms are also enforcing the message to ensure that everyone is adhering to all the different elements. It's no different to what most companies are doing, or even walking into a supermarket. It's exactly the same, just
Because
more
obviously,
amplified.
from your side with your staff complement, you as DNA brand architects, you want to be seen. I would take it as internalizing the government directives around social distancing and understanding that it becomes a national imperative, and you want your staff to know that you're not just saying stay at home. You buy in to a very important process, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a no-brainer. Clearly, that we, as a country, we are facing a huge challenge and with COVID-19. So ensuring that we also play our part in supporting all the interventions to help prevent and help support, citizens is something that's vital for a business, for any business. And I have to say that there is a misconception, though, Ashraf, that it's not just about communicating at the office about how to manage it. It's also communicating extensively about how our staff need to manage themselves at home as well, because it's not just being safe and complying in a work environment. It's also about being safe and complying in a home environment. So sanitizing at home, ensuring that you are careful about where you see yourself, wearing your mask correctly, making sure that the mask is washed, watching where you are, and ensuring that you keep a safe distance, and all those measures have to be amplified, and we have to remind our staff to do that at home equally, because without that being adhered to in the personal environment, it will also affect a work environment. And so that has been something that at least we are seeing on the ground to ensure that we manage.
Then moving externally, what advice have you given your clients about marketing themselves, about branding themselves at the time where very little economic activity has taken place?
Yes, we have advised our clients on multiple layers, but the one key layer that we think is critical and is very important is around what's happening to the internal brand, to the internal ambassadors who are the staff. And I think that there has been so much focus on communicating externally and putting up stuff on social media and sending out, emails. But there has to be a much more concerted effort to ensure that the people in organizations understand fully where the organization is sitting, understand fully the support that they're getting. Because I do think that without that strong focus on internal, as brands, we just end up just communicating externally and forgetting the core, ambassadors that we have as our staff. So our advice at the core of across all our clients has been, what are the interventions besides just communicating about COVID and of course sanitizing, putting on a mask, social distancing, etc. It's also how the organization is supporting the community and how the organization is supporting, the management of the scourge. And it's something that we see as incredibly important.
Okay, but what about brands then marketing themselves to the public in this period of COVID-19 economic downturn?
Brands at this period, and because it is a period of uncertainty, they need to be continuing to communicate to their audiences, not decreasing the level of communication. Because at this stage, it's also ensuring that the last thing you want is to be caught flat-footed and find yourself lagging behind when your competitors are really active at this time. So being able to understand that you want to still communicate, you want to still engage with your consumers, it's important. And I think it's a basic, understanding at this time. But how and what message you are communicating at this time is also important, because we have to be showcasing more empathy at this time. So it's not continuing the messaging just like you did in the past, but it's adjusting the messaging to be reflective of where consumers are today. And to be honest, if we look at our client base, most of our clients have increased their marketing spend. They've not decreased at all. We've had incredibly increased focus on marketing at this time. There are, however, some brands and some clients who are in the travel industry who have struggled, because obviously, at the moment it's hard for them to take on any bookings. So the level of kind of aggressive marketing in terms of bookings has really decreased, but being still visible, being still engaging, being still empathetic to the consumers is something that we are seeing.
Lastly, I'm very curious about this. So
this
could be corporates, it could be companies like yourselves, it could be government arms, it could be NPOs, NGOs who are all doing relief work specifically. So they're out in the field right now, providing some form of relief for the many people who are affected directly. And I'm talking about whether it's food parcels, whether it's giving them masks, whatever it may be, right? So the cause is great, and they are playing their part. The question to you is, what are your thoughts if they're carrying their company or NGO, NPO brands out when they're doing just that and promoting the good work they do out in the field and using social media to amplify the work they do?
I think it's obvious that every brand or business, when they engage in some campaign, they would want to showcase supporting whatever is happening in the community that they live in. And I think it's quite important that brands or or consumers know who is supporting them, understand who it is, and to make sure that consumers remember who is supporting them. And I have to say that currently, seeing incredible amounts of NGOs, particularly, really pushing themselves. Everyone, I think people are listening, and they are willing to assist and support more because of the state that we're in, where we all need to kind of pitch in and support. And so in my view, I think that brands being able to say, we are there, we're with you in the community right now, remember us, it's something that is respectable.
Okay, so because here's the flip side of it. Say NGO, religious NGO, for example, donates 100,000 rands in kind, in terms of, say, foods, and has their church or mosque logo at the back saying this is the work we do. So people who watch them, and I've seen this, to say, fantastic that you're doing this, but why are you telling us about it? Just do it because you need to do it. Don't push your brand. So how would you, I heard what you said already, how would you respond to that? You just do good, man. Come on, the country needs your help.
I think, absolutely, doing good is at the core of that action at the end of the day. And I think that what consumers are saying, and at least what we're seeing, is that consumers will also want to give thanks to someone. They want to say thank you to whoever is supporting, because that energy and that feedback is also critical. So I think it's actually unfair to kind of expect that brands should just give, and actually the people that are receiving can't even give that kind of sense of communication back to them. And I think at the end of the day as well is that brands also want to go back to their stakeholders and say, this is how we have supported, this is what we have done. And I don't think that is anything wrong. It's also obviously the intention that is being done, that you put up. I mean, I'm not saying you arrive and you pull up banners and you are going. It's more about the branding more than about the doing. But there's nothing wrong with a logo, that's reflecting your brand. If you are giving a food parcel, it is only fair.
And what about, again, the hundreds of pictures and videos that I've seen from top-notch, bona fide NPOs, support, doing fantastic work, but certainly again, promoting pictures of them physically doing the welfare work. That means even less about the brand, but showing 100 people in a queue, some people who may not have even given permission, obviously, for their photos to be taken, but they just delighted they get a queue. Your thoughts on the messaging that comes through out of that?
I have to say, over this period, I've also taken it out on, out of my own personal time to also send messages, specifically direct messages to some of those businesses that I think are trying to showcase their goodwill, but they are really doing it in a way that almost belittles the community in which they're serving. So, pictures of children, pictures of families in their homes, receiving a pack of maize meal. I don't think that is that when consumers look at that, sometimes it does look like we are taking advantage of the period. I think how we do things in a spirit of humility and a spirit that is also respectful of the people that are receiving, I think for me it is critical. And seeing those long queues and seeing people handing, clamoring for food, and with your logo on it, I don't think that do any justice to your brand. We still need to be, caring and kind, and active in the community, but we also need to do it with dignity, and do it with respect to the people that we are supporting. And I'm definitely not for that.
Is there any final insight you'd like to share around communicating a brand in the COVID-19 era?
I think that many people have spoken about this over this period, the need for empathy. And I think understanding that people at the moment are going through a myriad of emotions, and there's a lot of challenges. People are losing jobs. People are sick. People are dying. People are not working. People aren't earning an income. There's a lot of challenges. And I think brands just need to understand that at the moment, consumers are not sitting there waiting for, please, to communicate to me to buy something. I think they are looking for a lot more care showcased by the organizations and by the brands that they love. And I think if brands are more empathetic to the community and are more understanding of where the community is sitting right now, the work will be more reflective of that, and it will be warm, it will be kind, and it will be assisting communities versus aggressive
that's where we're going to leave it,
advertising and selling as we know it.
I think critically important thought leader insights into brand communication during this time of COVID-19. Thanks for your time. Most appreciated.